Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I'm your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast.
In Green Bay, Wisconsin, 50,000 Packer backers were reminded of the glorious past as a special tribute was paid to two retiring stars, Willie Davis and Forrest Gray. But young quarterback Don Horn offered the Packer fans a foretaste of the future as he fired 5 touchdown strikes to pace the Packers to an overwhelming victory over St. Louis. Veteran Boyd Dowler, number 86, was on the receiving end of 2 scoring shots as Horn passed for 410 yards to establish a Green Bay record. The influence of Bart Starr on the young signal caller was clearly evident as one of Horn's touchdown bombs came on a 3rd and short yardage situation near midfield. Carroll Dale ran into the end zone untouched.
And you just heard the name mentioned of our guest. On the phone line is former Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packer quarterback. We welcome to the show Don Horn. Don, Brian C., honor to have you this morning.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. God, it brought back memories. That was a long, long time ago, that young kid named Horn. That was a long time ago.
Legendary figure, that Horn. I want to begin. Don, you played the game at the highest level, and it all began in the mid-1950s as an 11-year-old kid falling in love with the sport. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I fell in love with it. I grew up in the L.A. area and used to go to the Ram games all the time. And my hero was a kid named Norm Van Brocklin. And I was about 11 years old. I decided I wanted to, try to be a professional football player. So, I wish I had a dollar or a nickel or a quarter for every time somebody told me, you're too fat, you're too slow, you're not good enough, or whatever. I wish I'd had. I'd be a rich man today.
Yeah, and you mentioned Norm Van Brocklin. That team also had Elroy Hirsch. And you grew up as a Rams fan, and your second favorite team were the Packs, right?
Pretty much, yeah, that was it. In fact, I was sitting in the stands at the first Super Bowl, senior at San Diego State, and sitting in the stands at the first Super Bowl, kind of complaining that I had to buy, my ticket cost, I think, $12. And all the years prior to that, I'd never spend more than $1 to get into a Ram game and sit high in the west end zone. And I had to spend $12 to get in and watch that game. And I was actually pulling for the Packers. And I bought my ticket from Bobby Beathard, who was kind of scouting for the Kansas City Chiefs. His brother Pete was back in the Lindy Dawson, and Bobby started coaching me a little bit when I was a junior in high school. So I've known Bobby since I was a junior at Gardena High in L.A.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I believe the Rams were the first team to have their games televised back in 1950. So there's a lot of history with the team.
Gosh, I didn't know that. That's a good point. And I remember going to the Ram games there on Saturday nights or Friday nights. I guess it was preseason, a lot of exhibition games back then. And, they were playing with the old white footballs at night. they had the white footballs with the black stripes.
Well, I want to fast forward a little bit to your college years. Now, you led the Aztecs to a #1 college rating your senior year, being named Little All-American. So I wanted to ask you, how well did college life prepare you for the NFL?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I played for the great Don, Air Coryell at the San Diego State. And I never had so much fun in my life. I never enjoyed football more than, well, high school you always do. But, college ball with playing for Coach Coryell was just most fun I ever had. But his approach to it and Coach Lombardi's was night and day different. Coach Lombardi was a little more, it was much more business. You're a professional. You got to treat it that way, and you have to, putting on a 3-piece suit and going to work. Very professional approach to the game. In college ball with Coryell and playing, and John Madden was our DMC coordinator. My roommate for a while was a young graduate assistant coach named Joe Gibbs. But it was fun. Coryell was just fun. It was you're a little younger and you're in college, and And it was it was serious. You took it very serious. You prepared well for the week and that type of thing. But going from the college ranks to the professional ranks was a big eye opener. For this young kid, I can tell you that it was a total different approach to it. And in fact, a lot of people over the years have told me, that have football knowledge, who said, I was kind of a drop back passer. I couldn't run very well, wasn't that quick, but I had a quick release, quick feet. I could get rid of the ball quick, and I was pretty much a pure passer my whole career. And some of the people that in the know tell you after the fact that Don, your career, the worst place you could have gone was Green Bay.
Oh, really?
Excuse me. with my going that very predictable offense. Run, maybe pass every now and then, and play action pass and that type of thing. But I tell you, Brian, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Catching the tail end of that great era up in Green Bay in the late '60s with all those great players. So many are in the Hall of Fame, but even more importantly, it's just the character. They were just a great bunch of athletes.
Yeah, and Don, reading your career, you are a pioneer of the college shotgun offensive game, and that was a formation used by the Gridiron football mainly for passing plays. Who taught you that style of play? Because you are considered a pioneer of that play.
Yeah, well, it's kind of ironic because I hurt my knee. My senior year at San Diego State, I hurt my knee probably the seventh or eighth game of the season. I actually tore my ACL, and so we actually inserted. We just that's the way Coryell, his whole offensive philosophy was just adjust on the run, and we actually just started last 2 or 3 games of the season. We just inserted the shotgun offense and. Of course, me being a pure drop-back passer, it was heaven for me, and we inserted it, and we had a pretty good end of the season that year. We were undefeated, untied, number one team in the country, and in fact, we beat Montana State in the Camellia Bowl. I think they were pretty much undefeated too, and I think the quarterback was Dennis Erickson, and of course, the great kicker in the Hall of Fame was Jan Stenerud. We're good friends today, but. Yeah, we beat them in the big championship game. I remember that one.
Amazing. Now, 1967, you were first-round selection, 67 college draft by the Packers. Do you recall how emotional was that for you?
Oh God, it was. It's a little different back then. I was, it's not near what it is now. It's all show business now, and the big production and that type of thing. Back then, throughout the season, you were coached by various scouts that come and visit you and watch games and watch you practice and stuff. And these coaches, they had groups or consortiums of different teams would compile and send 1 or 2 scouts to watch different players in the country. And then the 3 or 4 teams would have access to that information. So. During that season, I had probably 4 or 5 teams that scouted me, and the scouts would say, "Oh yeah, if you're available in the first round, we're gonna pick you. We're gonna get you." And I'm going pretty good, so that's great. So they want a phone number where you're going to be the day of the draft, and so I gave them a phone number. It was actually my PR director's office number at San Diego State. They had a little office there in a gymnasium, a little 10 by 10 office. And I remember sitting with him and his secretary. We're sitting, we had a phone there, and it was the phone number listed on the radio. And all these teams that said they're going to draft me in the first round, they didn't. And I was going, gosh, I can't, these guys, I guess maybe they don't tell you the truth all the time, these teams. And so it was towards the end of the first round, and the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and I never will forget this, Brian. And this lady says, "Is this Donald Horn?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Please hold for Coach Lombardi." Wow. And I thought somebody was jerking my chain. And
wow.
I almost hung up the phone. That was a dirty trick. I didn't talk to Green Bay at all, but I talked to other teams. Other teams, their scouts are in the same combine or consortium, and they were passing information on to each other. So when that voice came on, Brian, and he said, "Donald, And he said, this is Vince Lombardi, the Green Bay Packers. He says, he asked me a couple of questions, and he said, would you consider playing for the Packers? And I said, yes, sir. And he says, well, Kansas City's picking right now. We have the next, we have the next pick. And he said, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. And 15 minutes later, he called me back and said, welcome to the Green Bay Packers. When can you get back here?
Oh my God! Now, what was your thought process? Because Green Bay Packers have Bart Starr.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that that much at that point in time. I was just, glad to be drafted.
Right.
And then Bart Starr, and then, well, back then, back in the '60s, you weren't even expected. A rookie wasn't even expected to play for at least 3 years. 3 to 5. Supposedly the learning curve or the number of years that you had to spend, earning your stripes and that type of thing, and learning the game. But I tell you, playing behind Bart, meeting him, you won't find there's not a better man that ever played the game than Bart Starr, both on the field and off. He treated me, he was very open and receptive when I came, and helped me a lot. And he knew that I wasn't really a big threat to him. But I kind of thought I was 2 or 3 years later when I broke those records and stuff. Young, cocky kid. I thought I should be playing more.
Right. No, that's what I wanted to ask you next, because 69, you set a Packers passing record, 22 of 31 for 410 yards and 5 touchdowns versus the Cardinals. So you were setting records back in 69.
Yeah, I actually was, I think NFL Offensive Player of the Week a couple of times. I think I started 5 games, won 4, and set some records. Actually, that game that I set the records in, they took me out in the fourth quarter.
Really?
I didn't play the fourth quarter, and I might have played the first series of the fourth quarter. Then they took me out. I can't remember, but yeah. And I was a young, cocky kid, and I was, I played pretty well. Bart got hurt. I was playing pretty well and setting records, and I never will forget this. And then so a lot of the players, even some of the coaches, thought I should be playing more. In '69, and that was the year Vince went down to Washington. He went down to D.C. as the head coach, and in '69, I had a great year, and then I guess back then it was a little bit different. Free agency was a little bit different. So anyway, Coach Lombardi contacted me through a third party, through another party, and kind of extended an invitation that if I would play my option out with Green Bay in 1970, he wanted me to come down and back up Sonny and then take over with him down, down in D.C. And I didn't really want to leave Green Bay, and so I go to the coaches in early 1970 and think, Coach, I should be, a lot of people think I should be playing more and whatever. And Phil Bankston was the coach then, and he says, Don, as long as Bart's here, he's the franchise, he's the name, and he's going to play. And I said, I totally understand that, Coach. I totally understand that. So I go to Bart. Bart, just between you and me and the fence post, how many more years are you going to play? He says, probably 3 to 5 more. I'm going, doggone it, under my breath, whatever. So I didn't really, in 1970, I didn't really negotiate in good faith, because I thought I could, I didn't want to leave Green Bay, but wanted to stay up there. But, you want to play more. So I figured, well, maybe I'll just go down there and with Coach Lombardi. And of course, he passed away, that fall, and that deal fell through. And then after the season was over, they fired Bankston, and Dan Devine came in and heard I was unhappy, and he fired me right off here to Denver, that next year. And I came out here and started and tore my knee and my shoulder up about 2/3 through the season, and the rest is history. So who knows what would have happened. But I had some great times in Green Bay. I tell you, those teammates and those players, such great character and just total gentlemen on the field as well as off. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
We're talking with legendary quarterback Don Horn. Don, interview Bart Starr gave, he spoke about those Lombardi practices, and Starr said Lombardi was very well organized. The practices were so tough. His, he was very, very in-depth in talking to the team. What do you remember most about those Lombardi practices?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, we were more afraid of the practices than the game. I mean, because he would,
Yep.
he'd be right in there in the huddle, and no matter what you did, he'd always, point over the, a couple of flaws in this type of thing. And you run those plays and run those plays and run those plays till you got it right. Then you run it again and again and again. And we didn't back then. We didn't call it red zone and that type of thing back then. He would just all the time. Quarterbacks. We had meetings before meetings. Then we go to a regular meeting. Then we have quarterback meetings after that. And I tell you. As far as the quarterbacks, we were so prepared because, we called our own plays back then. And, we were so prepared, and he wanted certain plays called in certain situations in certain areas of the field, depending on if you're ahead or if you're behind. And you could be walking down the hall after practice or in the locker room. He could come by and turn to you and he'd say, Donald, he'd say, he might say something like, Third and 7 on our own 35-yard line. Fourth quarter. We're ahead by 10 points. What are you going to call? And you better have you got to fire right out there. You better have the right play called. And whether Bart was in the game or I was in the game or even Zeke Letkowski back then for a couple of years, the 3 quarterbacks that we had back there. Whatever quarterback was in the game, the other 2 quarterbacks would stand on the sidelines. Probably 3 out of 5 times we'd call the same play that the quarterback was, whoever was quarterback in the game would call. That's how programmed we were. It was such a, Vince he'd always play the percentages. Play the percentages all the time. Don't run around back there and don't do something stupid that's going to, you might throw a touchdown pass, but you're going to throw maybe 2 key interceptions during the game that's going to counteract that. So play the percentages, son. Play the percentages. And of course, me coming from West Coast, Don Coryell, we always call Don, the daff. He had a little, kind of a hair lip and stuff. And, he just throw the ball. Just throw the thing. Just throw it, Coach Lombardi didn't react quite that way.
Well, the old saying goes with Lombardi, winning is what he demanded, and winning is what he mostly got.
Yep, and I tell you, he was always afraid of the teams that didn't have the good records. He was always, if a team came in that had just a mediocre record and we were playing in that week, he was really demanding because he was so afraid that we'd take him lightly, wouldn't take him seriously, that type of thing. And I remember one afternoon, I think the 49ers were coming to town, and they had a mediocre record, and we're 10, 15 minutes into practice on a big day, offensive day on a Wednesday, and everybody's making just mental errors. I mean, even Bart made a couple of mental errors, and everybody was making mental errors. We're 10, 15 minutes into practice. All of a sudden, Coach Lombardi starts yelling at us and says, "Oh, God, get out of here. Get off my practice field, and don't come back till you're ready to practice. Get out of here. Get off of here right now." He turned around, walked off the field, got in his car, and drove off. And we're sitting there, and the coaches are going, "What the?" Anyway, we had a meeting a couple hours later. We had to go back to meetings after that. You could have heard a pin drop in those meetings. I mean, he got everybody's attention. We missed the whole days of practice, but we came out the next day, and we were running on all cylinders. So what one mistake the next day, I tell you that. He got us foot, but he just felt that we weren't taking. He had some way to get our attention, and he got it. But he just had the knack of just. And he was a funny type of a guy too, Brian. He would totally contrary to any motivational, coach back in those days. He would take you in private and compliment you and build you up when no one could hear you. He would build you up in private and then turn around 10 minutes later out in the field in front of God and 3,000 people watching practice and your teammates, and just undress you up one side and down the other, and he treated pretty much everybody that way. So I remember one time we were watching a game film and Jerry Kramer missed a block. And he always called you by numbers. He'd say, he'd say like, 64. Who's 64? Is that you, Jerry? Yeah. That's me. I remember, I'm sitting at the back and watching this game film. Doggone it, Jerry, look at that. That's pathetic. You couldn't block him, And he said, "So help me, Jerry. I mean, I've seen stray dogs wander on the practice field that are better guards than you'll ever be." I'm going, "Holy smokes, this guy's all pro." And he's talking to him that way. But that's the way he was. If he wasn't yelling at you or screaming at you from time to time, that's when you had to worry, because he was pushing you to be a better, a better player and a better, just a better man.
Right. And then, Don, after Green Bay 71, you were acquired by Denver. That was during Denver's developmental years. And talk a little bit about that, being a Denver Bronco.
Well, I tell you, back then, I mean, the AFL was just kind of still in its infancy, been around about 10 years. But, going from an organization like the Green Bay Packers to Denver at that point in time, the facilities and the organization and our whole approach to it was going I compare it to go from Major League, the big show in baseball, Major Leagues, going about single A or maybe double A, type of baseball in the organization. That's how dramatically different it was and that type of thing. But, I love it out here in Colorado. In fact, pretty much I've stayed here, 40 of the last 50 years, playing for other teams or whatever. It's a beautiful state. But that organization was, like I said, they were in the growing area, whatever. I did have an opportunity to play with Floyd Little, and he's the best running back I ever played with. He should have been in the Hall of Fame 20 years before he was, maybe 30.
Oh, he was excellent. Yeah, and I want to ask you, do you recall your 74-yard toss to Floyd Little? Do you recall that?
I remember that. Actually, we kind of made the play up in the huddle. I think, was that against Kansas City? That's when I tore my knee up too. That's Bobby Bell tore my knee up, and it was a clean hit. When I see Bobby today, every now and then I say, "Bobby, it was a clean hit. I can't complain. It was a clean hit." And he tore my knee up, but I think we kind of made the play up a little bit. We made an adjustment. I put him out. I made him a wide receiver, and threw him a pass, and he went 74 yards. It was a series. It was a play in a formation that the Chiefs hadn't seen, and it worked. But they were just a much better team back then than we were. But we didn't have the best offensive line back then, and we didn't have any great wide receivers to speak of. And our whole attack was Floyd Little, off tackle left, Floyd Little off tackle right, Floyd Little, and that was pretty much all we could do back then. So.
Yeah, and I got a few minutes left. I want to get a couple more in. 74,
sure.
74. You played with the San Diego Chargers along another great, Dan Fouts, during his early years. How is Dan Fouts? Do you recall? How did he treat you back then, Don?
Well, Dan is Dan. Dan has a lot of moxie and savvy. And it's funny because my high school coached me in high school, coached him at Oregon, a guy named Dick Enright. And he always said, Horn, he says, you're a better passer. He said, you always throw the ball much better than Dan. But, he thought maybe Dan might have been a little bit better leader is what he told me. But Dan had a lot of moxie and savvy. And I tell people, about 2/3 of my career professionally was playing behind future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And that's called being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But, Dan was his mechanics weren't the best, but he had a lot of moxie and savvy. And he was a great leader. And it's funny because after I left and retired, Dan was just a good quarterback pretty much under Prothero and the Chargers for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. And then when Coryell got named head coach of the Chargers, I wrote down a little note, and I said, "Get ready, you're going to be reborn." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "You'll find out. Coryell's coming." And to this day, Brian, Dan says the only reason he's in the Hall of Fame because of Don Coryell. And, it's so true. Don Coryell put him in the Hall of Fame because of his offense and his approach to it. But, Dan's he's a damn good quarterback, always was. And he's, having the right coach come in at the right time, the right philosophy, just kind of put him over the top.
But that's some compliment that you can actually throw the ball. Did you say further than Dan? Is that what they said?
He said I was a better passer than Dan.
Better passer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was. In fact, you talk about throwing the ball further. I mean, one afternoon, I think we were a rookie. We're in Green Bay, and we're goofing around one day in practice on a Saturday, and somebody kind of said, "Well, how far can you throw it?" And so, we kind of had a little contest, and Bart threw it about 55 or 60 yards, maybe 57 yards. I got up and threw it about, maybe 75 yards or 72 yards.
Wow.
Something like that. And then Zeke gets up and throws it about 80 yards, but Zeke Berkowski.
Yes.
And then Ray Nitschke's watching us. Ray Nitschke's watching us and says, "You bunch of wusses." He picks up the ball, throws it about 90 yards. He outthrew us all.
My God.
He was a great athlete. Ray Nitschke was a great athlete. He just said, "You wusses."
Oh, they're telling me I have 1 minute left. So what has the legendary Don Horn been up to these days?
Oh, I'm pretty much retired here in Colorado. I've been in the real estate business off and on for 40-some years, and did some things got involved with the alumni and helped with health issues and stuff, trying to help some of the older guys. I actually work with Mike Ditka now with the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund that Jerry Kramer started. Mike took it over, where we're trying to raise money for athletes in dire need that the NFL and the Players Association won't help out. So we raise funds to help out the old guys where the league has kind of forgotten about them and that type of thing. So, and do some stuff for wounded warriors too, and our veterans. I was in the Army for 5.5 years and in the reserves, and I have a lot of respect for our military veterans and that type of thing. So I try to help them every chance I get to.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your service, Don. And the website is donhornqb13.com, donhornqb13.com. And it's a really cool website. Talks about your history and a lot of interesting information.
Yeah, it's back when I was a young buck.
Well, I mean, you are a Super Bowl champion. Not many people can say that.
Yeah. That's when we were national champion. Of course, it was a small college, but have a national championship ring, and then I have a Super Bowl ring. So I wear them proudly every now and then. Of course, my son and my grandson want those too, so they'll get those eventually.
Well, listen, I appreciate it so much. We got to do it again, Don.
Hey, thank you very much, and good luck, and go Pack. I know this is going to the West Coast, but okay. See you later.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. The legendary Don Horn. Until next week, happy collecting to all.